All right, so what is this hype around the MicroStrategy stock exactly? Like, what is this treasury strategy? What is this Bitcoin thing anyway? I'm gonna give it to you everything in this quick video. I'll try to summarize it as compact and short as possible so that you could gain an initial understanding of what is going on here. Because, in my opinion, and this is not financial advice, this is the biggest opportunity of our lifetime, literally, next to Bitcoin itself, obviously. I'm not going to touch on Bitcoin in this video because that is a very deep rabbit hole. But one thing I will say, you need to study Bitcoin. If you haven't studied Bitcoin yet, this is an absolute must. Forget about anything else you want to learn about. Bitcoin should be your number one priority to understand. Okay? So let's get started. MicroStrategy stock started to trade this year, 2024, around $63. And in its peak, it went all the way up to I think 470 or something. Like currently it's trading at 330, so it came back down. But that's normal. I mean, look like how massively it went up and now it's just correcting. And how is that possible? Like, what is this stock doing? It's the best performing stock. It has the best performing bonds as well, convertible bonds. So it is winning on a number of metrics like no other company out there is. So obviously others are starting to ask themselves, what are they doing? And why can we not do the same? And actually you can. That's the great thing about it. Michael Saylor, the chairman of MicroStrategy, has put out this playbook for anyone to copy and has put himself and MicroStrategy in a position where the more people copy this playbook, the better it works for everyone. That's really the mind-boggling, crazy, great thing about this. Let me put this up here. So the number one thing that was very important to happen in 2024 were the Bitcoin ETFs. So the approval of these Bitcoin ETFs by the SEC, it validated MicroStrategy's strategy because they were holding and accumulating Bitcoin since 2020, okay? And these ETFs now have attracted billions, and big companies like BlackRock and others have jumped on the bandwagon of accumulating Bitcoin, right? And now we're having legitimate institutional interest in Bitcoin. And that directly, not indirectly, benefits MicroStrategy because it amplifies the value of Bitcoin. And MicroStrategy is the largest Bitcoin holder around, right? So the relationship between Bitcoin's price and MicroStrategy stock price is evident. So with MicroStrategy often outperforming Bitcoin during bull runs. So why is that? Why is MicroStrategy outperforming Bitcoin even, the best performing asset of the last decade? Let's have a look. So first of all, up until October, things were not as clear as they are now. But post the red sweep election, now we have, in the US, obviously, the Republicans gained control over Congress and the White House, and MicroStrategy stock went up 477% since then. Like, it's just crazy. And this surge was attributed to a more crypto-friendly political climate. So we have a lot more of crypto-friendly environment now. And there's an expectation of favorable regulatory changes and reduced hostility towards Bitcoin from financial regulators. Because we had with Gary Gensler and the SEC before, a situation that was absolutely not sustainable. Like we had the chairman of the SEC not really defining rules of the game, but still suing everybody and completely not open to any sort of discussion or solution, which was quite destructive and not very American in the first place, right? So this election result is a tailwind for Bitcoin and obviously for the MicroStrategy stock as well, as the company's strategy is heavily tied to the performance of Bitcoin because their strategy is we buy Bitcoin. And now what they adopted, and I'll get to that in a second, is basically their corporate treasury strategy. And other companies have started to copy that as well. So MicroStrategy has pioneered the use of Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset, significantly increasing its Bitcoin holdings to over, now that number is outdated, it's over 400,000 now, 400,000 Bitcoin. So the company's strategy involves issuing convertible bonds using the funds to buy more Bitcoin. And that here, because this is only half of the story. So they use the issuance of debt, convertible bonds, but they also issue new shares, new stock, basically, of their company, which usually would dilute the existing stocks and would drive the price down. But as they are getting the money in, they immediately buy Bitcoin with it and add it to their balance sheet. So this is the first time in the financial history that actually issuance of new stocks is not dilutive, but accretive. It adds value to the company because it adds Bitcoins to the holdings of the company. And the company is known for its strategy, which is buy Bitcoin, any price, hold it forever, never sell it. And that has created such a flywheel of different energies cooperating together, which is really truly unique. So this approach has made MicroStrategy a favorite vehicle for Bitcoin investment among those unable or unwillingly to directly hold the cryptocurrency. Because now you have other players in the market that can buy a public company, right? They can buy a listed stock, but they cannot buy directly Bitcoin, or they wouldn't want to. Or other companies, even like insurance giants like Allianz in Germany, would buy the corporate bond of MicroStrategy because they can run their own different types of strategies that is not necessarily tied to the price of Bitcoin, but they can run basically gamma trading, which is like sort of a volatility type of trade, market neutral type of trade. And they can make a ton of money only because this stock is very volatile, only because the price of Bitcoin is very volatile, and because there's a huge volume of options market around the MicroStrategy stock that doesn't exist around anything else like that. So that the creation of that unique situation is really just adding more interest and attracting capital like a magnet. And what happened as a consequence was that MicroStrategy was added to the NASDAQ 100. So it's now in the index, which will bring a perpetual bid on the MicroStrategy stock. So there's more and more and more and more purchases having basically automatically happening, yeah, and that's expected to increase its visibility and potentially attract more institutional investors due to the passive investment tracking this index. So this inclusion was announced just recently, mid-December 2024, and it reflects MicroStrategy's transformation from a software company that was out to lose against the giants like like Microsoft, and then transformed into something very, very unique, a Bitcoin treasury company, and literally, brought the company MicroStrategy to a unique place of billions and billions and billions of dollars. And that's literally only the beginning. It's crazy. And now, one thing that also has changed now is the so-called FASB accounting changes. So before, MicroStrategy was not able to show its Bitcoin holdings as assets on their balance sheet. It was treated differently in the way that the accounting is done. But now they adopted what is called a fair value accounting treatment for Bitcoin, hold on corporate balance sheet. So this change allows companies like MicroStrategy to reflect their Bitcoin holdings at current market value. And that very likely is going to positively impact report earnings. So in the first quarter of 2025, for the first time ever, MicroStrategy can now use Bitcoin holdings as showing it as earnings. And that will likely make it the most profitable company in the US by a far stretch. And even to a point that it might be included now in the S&P 500 next. So coming from the NASDAQ, which is already like a huge influx of passive buying pressure, now to the S&P 500 as the next basically big milestone seems not far-fetched at all. And all these developments are coming to a head, and this is why you need to know about that. And now, in fact, the shareholder proposals and capital raising. So essentially, what MicroStrategy is doing is they issue new shares so they can buy Bitcoin with it. They sell it at the market, ATM selling. Now, they've done that for about close to 21 billion in the last month only. So they increased their Bitcoin stash massively by about 50% almost of what they were holding before in a couple of weeks. And the way they were able to do it is that because the interest is so big, he could issue new stocks, and it's been gobbled away by the market. And at the same time, he's adding value on his balance sheet because he uses that money to immediately buy Bitcoin and put it on his balance sheet. So he's not using that money to spend it on anything else. So it's not really a dilution, but it's accretive because of the Bitcoin acquisition. And this move could allow MicroStrategy to raise significant capital. So now they're trying to increase that up to 10.3 billion shares. Now, they're not going to throw them all on the market at once. They're not going to trash their price. They're not going to, destroy this whole thing. But they're just opening up for the possibility to use that. And MicroStrategy actually, or Michael Saylor, was clear about that. He's looking for a certain percentage in the whole fixed income market, which is about 3 trillion size. So it means that this is why he needs 10.3 billion shares. So he's just getting the permission to do that. And then he can continue to issue his shares, but also, issue bonds as he needs it, And the next yeah, basically part of the flywheel is here the strategic reserve conversation. So there is speculation around the concept of a strategic Bitcoin reserve for nation states, right? Now we're going over from corporate treasury to nation state strategic reserves. And of course, Michael Saylor is advocating for Bitcoin's role as global reserve asset. And now this idea has gained even traction. So there is a bill that supposedly Donald Trump is going to put into action right at the beginning when he's going to take over in January. And Senator Lummis has already the bill ready and is, obviously lobbying for it, trying to put it into place quickly. So if the US decides to have a Bitcoin strategic reserve, either with existing Bitcoins or even adding to it, there's conversations or talks about it doing a million Bitcoins over 5 years, so 200,000 Bitcoins purchases every single year. But some people say it could be a lot more. Some people say they will not buy anything. They will just use the Bitcoins they already have and put that in a strategic reserve. In any case, whatever they do, if any strategic reserve comes into being, that will add, and this is the next point, to the game theory of companies and nation states. Because now suddenly, because the US did it, MicroStrategy is the most successful company in the world doing it as well. Now others need to do it as well if they want to stay competitive. So MicroStrategy's strategy can be seen as a form of game theory where holding Bitcoin might incentivize other companies and even nation states to follow suit, potentially leading to a feedback loop. So the more people buy it, the more the price of Bitcoin goes up, the more anyone who holds Bitcoin profits from it. You too, if you wanted to hold Bitcoin, right? And this is where the increased demand for Bitcoin raises its price, benefiting early adopters like MicroStrategy, or even you would be still early. Even now at around 94,000 as I'm doing this video, you would still be considered early. And Michael Saylor actually says that, like, you're getting a discount on basically $1 million per Bitcoin. So he in his basically bear case or base case, he sees Bitcoin in the next 20 years go to $13 million. And there's a much higher. He basically says in any case, it's millions. And we're trading now at 10% of a million. Okay. So, and this dynamic part of a broader narrative where Bitcoin is viewed as a strategic asset for financial stability, similar to gold reserves. And here we see actually the first other, let's just say, proof that things are going in that direction. Strive. Strive is an asset management company that issues ETFs, and it's led by J.D. Vance and Vivek Ramaswamy, so important people in the Trump administration, right? And they filed for a new ETF named the Strive Bitcoin Bond ETF. So that ETF will aim to provide exposure to Bitcoin through investments in convertible bonds issued by companies like MicroStrategy. Because these convertible bonds, you cannot get access to them otherwise. They're not easy to get to because A, they're bought off the market very quickly, and B, you as an end user, you wouldn't be able to buy them anyway. So this ETF will make it possible. So you could even buy the bonds now, not necessarily the stock, because the bond will have a different value proposition with less volatility and less risk, but also less upside, but also for a different purpose, right? But what it means is that whatever bonds are purchased, that money that MicroStrategy takes in from these bonds is going to be used to buy Bitcoin, to add it to their balance sheet. And that balance sheet will just continue to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow in Bitcoin, which will add buy and buy and buy and buy pressure. Let's not forget, MicroStrategy alone in the last few weeks added so much more Bitcoin to its balance sheet. I think it's I don't have the right number right now, but it's like years of the current Bitcoin issuance, because again, we had the halving earlier this year. So the amount of new Bitcoins coming to the market is very small compared to the amount of Bitcoins bought every single day by the regular Bitcoin ETFs, but especially also by MicroStrategy and all the copycats coming out of the woodwork all over the world, adding to that. So it's really a self-reinforcing flywheel from all sorts of angles. And this is what you need to understand when you're like getting very, very like at the base level of that conversation. It should spark interest that you now put more effort into analyzing and understanding, first and foremost, also what Bitcoin is. Because if you don't understand Bitcoin, you will never understand this. And you need to understand Bitcoin because every decision that you have made in your life, every single decision, into some element had or was influenced by money, right? Which country you live in, which city you live in, which school you go to, which partner you choose, which job you're looking to have. All of these things, not a single important decision in your life has been made without having had an impact about money. So you need to understand what the hell is money in the first place. If you don't understand what money is, how could you make all these important decisions about anything in your life without really understanding what money is? And this is why you need to study Bitcoin, because once you go down the rabbit hole of studying Bitcoin, you will learn about money. You will learn about economics. You will learn about sovereignty. You will learn about hard money. You will learn about the inflationary fiat system we're in, the abuse of it, and how it caused so much bad things to humanity over thousands and thousands of years, maybe even actually. So very important, study Bitcoin. And the current market sentiment and analyst ratings, obviously, is very, very positive. So many have upgraded their ratings to buy or strong buy due to the aggressive Bitcoin strategy of MicroStrategy, the stock performance. But of course, there are concerns about the sustainability. And this is why I urge you to study it yourself. Do your own research, understand it yourself, and develop your own conviction of this whole thing. Because if you don't have the conviction, there's one thing that's going to shake you out. It is volatile. You will see massive swings, and that swings will punch you in the face. So if you don't have conviction, if you don't have a thesis that you actually understand and are committed to because you deem it to be absolutely correct, you will not be able to sustain the pain of this ride. So this is what I would want to leave you with here right now, is that invest the time to understand Bitcoin, invest the time to develop your thesis, and then if MicroStrategy is something for you, which personally it is very much something for me, I believe that you have the opportunity of a lifetime.